strip till, and it just can't be done. You lose 40 acres of bushel, and that's Rodale Institute's own study. So with no-till being the dominant method, I think you'd agree as a soil scientist, does this build us a better water retention and, you know, organic matter?
Yeah, I mean, in no-till, I mean, I'm a great advocate of no-till, and one of the things that we talk about in the Midwest is that no-till reduces yield, but long-term no-till farmers actually have yields that are 30 to 40 bushels above county average. And their yield trends are much steeper than the county average, so that's kind of a myth. But in the water piece of it and the nutrient cycling piece of it, when we start adding that residue, we have reduced the evaporation component out of BT, so we're putting more of that water back through the crop by transpiration, and that's where yield comes from. It's not evaporating off. We put that plant in an environment that is much less stressful. And even in central Iowa here, early in the season, our soil surface temperatures get to about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So this little corn plant and soybean plant is trying to grow in an extremely hot environment. We put it in residue, and it's basically at air temperature. So we can change the whole stress environment. David mentioned the fact that if we don't have the proper things at the very beginning of our life, how stunted we are. The same thing happens in plants. What we're finding is that in soybeans, that if we stress that plant early, we limit yield potential because we limit the number of flowers per node. So we're seeing different things that happen. So we need to understand how these dynamics are working and how a subtle change like just adding residue begins to fit into this process and it changes both in the short term and the long term.
Well, I will say this, it's all not rosy. We do have resistant weeds showing up in the south. And we're starting to have to break out of no-till just to get rid of the weeds. And one of the things we've been lobbying as corn and soybean growers is please give us new modes of action. You know, glyphosate's wonderful, but we fortunately have soybeans that are just being approved, just got released by EPA for the tolerances and such. And we may have dicamba resistance, we may have 2,4-D resistance. The formulations have reduced the spray drip issues, and I can tell you big data is going to help us keep the spray drip records completely on where we need to be. So we look forward to seeing it. You know, we get back to no-till if we can just have a rotation. I learned when I was sitting around with CAST weed scientists for 3 years I was the president. Well, you know, the weed guys, just give us the modes of action and we will have an endless loop of management for those weeds. They'll never have to be resistant to everything. We just have to manage it perfectly. So, yeah, well, we waited for years to get liver-dealing soybeans, and now we're going to wait 18 months while USDA does an environmental impact statement, but we hope to get these new soybeans very soon.
Great. Well, David, you mentioned how Dr. Buchanan was a co-conspirator in doing this project.
Yeah.
I know. I like to make it fun so that, you know, you learn as well as have some fun. So, Dr. Buchanan, you wrote, by the way, David, when you sent me the book, I read it last night. And it's a good book. I can tell you that it's a good book. He sent me the chapters too. So you wrote the overview in many ways. So tell us some of the grand challenges that is facing the humankind, the planet, and where do you see some of these technologies converging?
If you were in the sessions all during the day, just about everything I can think of was mentioned. Of course, Dr. Fraley a few moments ago summarized it. But you have to start with population. If you go back to before agriculture even got started, the population of the planet was estimated to be between 1 and 5 million. Now, the planet can probably have handled a few million more, but certainly not the billions we have today. So population has got to be one of the first things. But that's not even the most important. We heard this from another speaker today. The growing expectations as the middle class numbers increase, one of the first things that they want is not just food, but they want more diverse food, they want better quality food, they want more meat, milk, vegetables, they want things that make life worth living. And so that's two of the really important things. But then another challenge that we have are the antis. And of course, what I mean are the anti-scientists, the animal agricultural groups, the people that are just against technology, they're just against everything. And I don't have any of you take the New Yorker, and I don't read the New Yorker for the science, but I read the New Yorker for the cartoons, and it's very good. Well, occasionally I do read an article. And I read an article that I couldn't believe, and I hope the writer misquoted this person. I hope that. But this person was quoted as saying, fertilizer should never have been allowed in agriculture, according to Dr. Shaw in a 2011 speech. I think it's time to ban it. It's a weapon of mass destruction. Its use is like war, because it came from war. Now, those of us at this conference understand that that's fallacious almost from any perspective. But what about the person that doesn't understand where food comes from? What will they think? That those of us engaged in agriculture are just doing things that are not right. So this hurts. So this is another thing. But also the availability of things. Availability of water. Water determines the success of agriculture. I live in a part of the country in the southeastern U.S. where we're never more than 7 days from a crop failure. In fact, going back to yield, you should have rain within every 5 days, or add water, because they essentially know water only capacity. So water is a clear issue that we've got to deal with. But also there's other things, nutrients. And we have plenty of nitrogen as long as we have plenty of natural gas, but that is mostly today comes from natural gas. We have plenty of potassium, but phosphorus is somewhat limited. We have only a few places around the world where we have major deposits of phosphorus. So this is a concern. And then you have things like climate change, which is a challenge. And there are two things that weren't mentioned today that I'm going to mention that I think are challenges. And that is the limitations on cooperation and collaboration. Now, those of us in this room have no problem in cooperating. And that's true with many countries around the world. But what about countries that's engaged in hostilities? Now, how much cooperation do you have on feeding the planet with that kind of activity going on? We don't have time or room for war anymore. Now, how do you get rid of it is beyond me, but we just simply don't have time for that. And another thing is, as we increase the population, we have less chance for margin of error. When we had only a couple of billion people, we have room for some errors. But when you get 10 billion people, which we're going to have soon after the middle part of the century, you have convergence of droughts and other problems, and you don't have much flexibility to take care of all of these people. So these are two other things that are really critical that I think are going to be important in the days ahead. But I think the solution really is going to come from people such as you and me, because I don't really think that we can have government worried about this. I think we've got to start at the individual level being concerned about our future. And that's the way it comes up from the bottom, that we've got to be concerned about what happens in the future. So that's some of the challenges I think that we've got to address if we want to be successful in the future.
Wow, I can see why, you were an inspiration. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we talked quite a bit about convergence. Now, maybe when you put those three sockets, you also had sustainability.
Yes.
And as you know, sustainability has so many definitions.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about sustainability. What does sustainability mean to you? And then we can maybe go and get some contribution from other panel members.
Well, from my experience, it seems like there are so many different definitions of sustainability. It's one of those words that it depends on the individual that is doing the speaking. But I tell you, the panelist that tracks sustainability more than anyone else is my friend understand what's going on with sustainability. Tom goes to all the meetings. So I'd like to defer that question to Tom.
Well, I guess I mentioned sustainability standards. So people are trying to define sustainability in various settings. The World Wildlife Fund actually has 25 different agricultural sustainability standards. And they break it down, okay, there's the new cotton or palm oil, okay, and even they struggle. They define palm oil, and the United Kingdom Advertising Standards Authority, the other famous saying, not the Soybean Association, said that is not possible, because you can't have BT be sustainable. We know GMOs are evil, and you shouldn't even dream of ever calling, this is on the cotton side. And on the palm oil side, they said, didn't you kill a few orangutans? We hear bad things about your palm oil. So you can define it, but you find there are opponents to everything you do. The worst example of sustainability I can think of is in the American National Standards Institute, which is a beloved institution that I've cited in many lawsuits because they set standards you can use in product liability cases. Has a new standard coming out soon. It's about to be published, called the Leonardo 4000 Standard on Sustainable Agriculture. And I've been involved in that for 8 years of watching a few organic activists essentially co-op a process that's supposed to set a national standard, which by Commerce Department regulation should be referenced by USDA, DOE, other people in the agencies, although they're all looking at it sideways and having meetings with me, but what do we do when this thing comes? I'm not your lawyer, USDA, sorry. So this thing will come out and have this anti-GMO, for example. If I'm the grower of GMOs here, I have to prevent all migration to my neighbor. So imagine Jerry here is an organic grower. He signed a contract with Whole Foods to